All right, compare order fractions, decimals, and percents. Now, what I want to talk about first of all is I want to talk about, we're on, this section, this chapter is talking about percents, and so I want to talk about, starting with percents, how we change percents, harder percents than what we've been dealing with, harder percents to decimals and to fractions first. So, for example, let's say I had 0.3%. Okay, now 0.3%, if we're going to write it in, the directions tell us to write it in two different forms. Well, the only other form to write it in is fraction and decimal form. The first thing, the easiest way to do this is to first of all change it to a decimal. So its decimal form, would be taking 0.3, and some people say, well, it's already a decimal. No, it's a decimal percent. Decimal percent and a decimal is not the same thing. So I've got to move the decimal 2 places to the left. I've got to plug in zeros here, so I have 0.003. Okay, that's your decimal form. Now to take that and put it in fraction form, then we have to know our place values. That's the tenths. This is the thousandths. Nope. Hundredths. And this is the thousandths. So the 3 is in the thousandths place value. So I put a 3 over 1,000. So that's fractional form. So then your two answers would be 0.003 and 3 over 1,000. That's the percent, 0.3%, written in two other ways. Okay, now, if your fraction will reduce, you need to reduce it. Okay, in that particular case, there is no common factor between 3 and 1,000, so therefore I can't reduce it. Now, let me... Yeah, I'm just looking to see here. Yeah, you need to reduce it. I'll show you one right now that, okay, they give us one 200%. Okay. Well, the two other forms, since they've given me a percent, they're not always going to give you a percent. They may give you a fraction, and they give you a decimal. Okay, and if they want you to write it in two other ways, well, there's only three ways: percents, fractions, and decimals. That's the three ways we're talking about today. So this, as a fraction, would be what? What are all our percents based on? 100. So it's what? Yeah. 200 over 100. Now, you don't have to reduce that one, because if you reduce it, what would you come up with? Which is what? 2. Okay. We don't want to do that because the decimal the decimal of that number is 2. Okay, so that's your answers. 200 over 102. Okay, the reason we didn't reduce it because we could end up with the same number as 2 And so they want you to express it in two different ways. So the way, one way I would accept also there is 2 over 1. I would accept that as well, because that is still a fraction. And but the rest of them, if you just get, like, for example, let's say you got 10 over 15, or you got 10 over 100. Okay, 10 over 100 needs to be reduced to 1/10. Okay. Now, let's look at one where they give you something besides a percent. Let's say they give you 1 3/4, and they want you to take 1 3/4 and express it in 2 other ways. Well, the 2 other ways to express it is as a percent and express it as a decimal. Okay. Now, to express that as a decimal, okay, because really it's easier to get a decimal in this one than, because you've got to get a decimal before you can get a percent anyway. So we use it as a decimal. We take 1 3/4. Okay, well, we don't do anything with the 1. We look at the 3/4. 3/4 means I divide 4 into 3. Okay, bottom number into the top number. 4 goes into 3 how many times? 4 into 3? 0 times. Okay, so I'm going to put a 0 there. Bring up my decimal. 4 goes into 30 how many times? 7 times. Be 28, remainder 2, bring down my 0. 4 into 20 how many times? 5 times. Be 20, remainder 0. So I'm not done yet. I have to bring my 1 down, and I got 1.75. That's decimal form. So now my percent, I'm going to take 1.75, change it to a percent, which means I got to move it twice to the right. And that gives me 175%. So there's your two other ways to express 1 3/4. Okay, so what if I have a decimal? Say they give me 0.6. Well, what's the 2 other ways I can express 0.6? Noah? I don't want the actual answer. I just want, what are the 2 other ways? Yeah, percent and fraction. Okay, so what is 0.6 as a percent? Jonah? 60%. Okay, what is 0.6 expressed as a fraction? Isaac? No, not 100. What place value is the 6 in? Yeah, 6 over 10. But can I reduce that? What can I reduce it to? What? 3 over 5, 3/5. So there's your 2 answers. 60% and 3/5. That's what 0.6 is as a percent and fraction. Okay? Now, what if we're comparing, what if I want to compare 49% to 0.51? What do you think I have to do? Isaac? Okay, and why are you doing that? Starts with a P. There you go. All right. So we're going to put them in the same unit of measurement. Either we're going to change them both to decimals or both to percents, because, I mean, realistically, you probably know which one's bigger, okay? But I want to know that you understand, okay, that this, if I do this, I move it 2 places to the right, like Isaac said, okay, that makes that 51%. Now we're for sure, we know 49%, 51% are in the same measurement, okay, and so now we can really compare them. And so if I had 49% or 51%, which is larger? 51%. So we're going to put the less than sign in the blank. Okay? Which one of these is larger? .1 or 1%? 0.1 or 1%? Maya? 0.1. Why is 0.1 larger than 1%? Yeah. You change 0.1 to a percent once, twice, be 10%. So 10% compared to 1%, we put the greater than sign in the blank. Okay? Now that brings us to the harder part. Okay? The harder part is this. Order from least to greatest. Okay? So for example, I have 0.3%, 0.65, 3/5, and 3.0. Now, when we're ordering from least to greatest, first thing is we need to get them all in the same type of form, either all percents, all fractions, all decimals. Okay. The other thing is simply what do you feel more comfortable? Some of you may feel more comfortable doing percents than you do decimals. Okay. That's what you feel, then put them all in percent form. Some of you may feel more comfortable using decimals. Do that then. Some of you may feel more comfortable doing fractions. Okay, fractions are probably the hardest of the group because then you have to have common denominators for all the fractions to be able to compare them. Okay, so you can do it that way, but it's a little bit more difficult. Realistically, probably the easiest way to do it is either decimal or percents, just depending how many, like right here, we already have 3 of the numbers that are either in decimal or percent form. So it'd be better to go ahead and change them all to decimal or percent. That way you can tell and you don't have as much work, basically. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change them all to decimals. Okay? I'm going to change them all to decimals. I'm going to take this first one, and then I'm going to show you something here in a second. I'm going to take this first one, and what is 0.3% at a decimal? Isaac? Not 0.3. We already did it, but you were before you got here. Jonah, what is it? No. Emma? Yeah. It's the first one in your notes, folks. We did it in your notes. 0.003. Okay, because you had to move it 2 places to the left. Okay, so you had to fill in 2 zeros. 0.65 is already a decimal. Okay. Then we have 3/5. Well, 3/5 we have to divide 5 into 3. 5 goes into 3 0 times. 5 goes into 30 how many times? 6. So that is 0.60. And then 3.0 is already should know that that's obviously the largest one. Okay? So I have 0.03, 0.003, 0.65, 0.60, and then the whole number 3. Okay? So which is the smallest out of those? Think of it in money terms. Jonah. Right, 0.003. Now, when you write the answer, you must put it in its original number form. Okay, whoops, not circle it yet. All right, so what's the next smallest number? Brandon? 0.60. Whoops, sorry, 3/5. The next one would be what? Michael? 0.65. And then the last one, 3.0. Okay, you will notice I put them back in their original form. You must have the original numbers in your answer. Okay. All right, let's look at another one. Five-sixths, 80 over 100, 1.2, 1.9%. Now, we can use a little common sense here, okay? Now, I know common sense is sometimes hard for 6th graders to use, okay? Because you just hadn't gotten there yet. But common sense would tell me this, okay? If I was to express this number as a decimal, if I was to express 5/6 as a decimal, would it be larger or smaller than 1? See, I knew common sense would mess you up. Is that a proper fraction or an improper fraction? Proper. Aren't proper fractions less than 1? So we already know that this one here is greater than 1. Is there any other number up there that's greater than 1? What? What is 1.9% as a decimal? .019. So is 0.019 bigger than 1.2? No. So 1.2 is the largest number. Okay? We know that 80 over 100, okay, would be 0.80. Okay, because 80 over 100 is the same thing as 8 over 10. Okay? We know that We know that this is 0.019. Well, 5/6 is close to number 1, right? If I add another 1 to the 5, isn't that 6/6, which is 1? So we know then that this one is close to 1. We know that this is nowhere near 1. We know that this is close to 1. So what's the smallest of those three? Okay. This one here is the smallest, so I put in my answer 1.9%. So that leaves me basically with these two right here to see which one is larger, which one is smaller. Okay. Well, I'm just going to convert this to a decimal. Doesn't go into 5. 6 goes into 50 8 times. Be 48. Remainder 2. Bring down my 0. 6 into 20 goes 3 times. Be 18. Remainder 2. So it's just going to keep doing that. So which is larger, 0.833333 or 0.80? Which is larger? So what would you rather have, 83 cents or 80 cents? 83 cents. So therefore, 80 over 100 is here, and 5/6 is here. Okay. All right, your homework is this. I've shortened it up a little bit. You won't have any of the actual problems that we did in the notes in your homework, okay? But I can give you more homework and let that be the case, but I'd rather just give you less homework, okay? It's going to be 10 through 25. Oh, 17.3? Okay. All right, 17.3, 10 through 25. So that's 16 problems. Okay, the first 6 will be easy. Then the last, I think it's 10. Let's see, what it's 6, 7. First 7 are easy. Then the last 8 are pretty difficult. Not in the sense of they just take a little longer. Okay. Tomorrow make sure you bring your phones with you or your tablets. Okay, we're going to use those in class tomorrow. So make sure you bring those to class with you tomorrow.